So good morning everybody, Thursday. And as you can see, it's raining quite a bit. But it's nice, it's refreshing. And it's nice just to walk in a bit of rain for a while. I mean, I don't mind the rain myself. Come on. But it's nice. Refreshing. To get out in the rain. So the things we're going to talk about today is one, what I see is what helped me with PTSD. I'm going to start with a bit of a moan about something, really. And that is the decline of Amazon delivery drivers. I mean, over the last few months, I've got to say, Amazon and the deliveries are getting a lot worse. You know, it used to be, you know, one of the main reasons you shopped on Amazon was because when it said next day delivery, it was next day delivery. And increasingly, what I've found now is, Pagan, this way, come on. What I've now found is, you order stuff which says next day delivery, and then all of a sudden you get a message through, or an email, saying, sorry, we can't deliver on this day. Right, I'm going to start walking because he's getting impatient, getting all over. Come on. We don't have any more in stock. And you think to yourself, how the hell's that happened? And I've even done it a couple of times where you don't even get an email message, but the item might tip up, if you're lucky, a week later. And it's not fair because, I mean, it's called Amazon Prime. Hints in the name, Prime. And I just think, you know, this is wrong. I mean, I pay for Amazon Prime, and you should get Prime features. But what I've found increasingly, and I'm not being racist here, I know some people are going to jump on a bandwagon and say, oh, you're being racist. I'm certainly not racist. I've got some very good friends. But we seem to have a surge recently of foreign drivers. And these people simply do not care. They won't knock on your door. They don't care about your parcels. They just leave them out in the open for everybody to see. I mean, I have to be honest. When it's obviously a British English driver, they do knock on your door. Okay, they might not stay for long, probably 15, 20 seconds. And I appreciate they've got a lot to do, more than what they're probably capable of doing. So they've got to get a waddle on. They've got to get a move on. And I know that, I understand that. But it's like yesterday, and I mean, this has happened multiple times before. But like yesterday, I think I mentioned I'd ordered some new digital scales. I ordered a little unit for the side for boiling eggs, poaching eggs, or making omelettes. And I'd ordered some proper cold press olive oil. And the only items going together, there was a fairly big box. I'm not saying they were dead expensive, but, you know, it was expensive. Well, moderately expensive. Now, Pagan hears anybody. And suddenly he jumps up the window. I know when someone's there because he doesn't always bark, but he will run to the door and look at it. I was sat on my computer. I noticed him doing it. I thought, oh, I wonder if Amazon's here. So I knew he was out for delivery. So I looked out the window. I saw a silver van there. I went outside and looked, opened the door. Nothing there. I thought, oh, it must have been from next door or something. But it was a little bit strange. So, come back in. And sometimes you get the maps coming up of where the delivery driver is. I thought, oh, I'll just have to check, see where he is. So keep an eye out for him. I looked, it said been delivered. I thought, well, I didn't see anything delivered. And there's nothing behind my bin. I went back out to look. And this muppet had literally just put the parcel inside my drive in full plain view. You know, he'd never knocked on the door. I mean, I've got a ring doorbell, not a ring doorbell, a Tapo doorbell. And I looked back on that quickly. He hadn't even come to the front door. All he'd done was literally got the parcel out of his van, come and put it by the door and walked away, leaving it fully exposed for the parcel to be easily nicked, and got in and drove off. I mean, that's you know, I was just saying, well, how can you tell me how it's been nicked? Well, it's not there. I don't know how you prove it. Do you take a picture of your front door with no parcel? Or what? I don't know. But I mean, normally when you go on and they deliver stuff, in any case, you get a photograph saying package just left, you know, and it's a photograph of behind the bin. I didn't even get that. I don't know who the delivery was through, whether it's I don't think it's through Amazon, because anything Amazon does, you usually get an Amazon van. But this is becoming more and more I mean, I've had loads just lately. People, foreign drivers have just left up behind my bin. I've gone out. I said, why didn't you ring the doorbell, mate? I did. No, you didn't. But anyway, that's the moment of the day. But it all pissed me off. I might even look at getting my stuff from somewhere else. Obviously, you can't trust. I mean, the stuff's good on Amazon, but you do have a problem with, well, especially now the delivery drivers. Some are good, and like I said, I don't mean to sound racist, but it's only the English people who actually seem to do the job properly. So I was going to talk about PTSD and what's helped me. Now, I've got a long history with PTSD, and to be fair, I do know what I'm talking about. I did set up a charity, well, it's a non-for-profit, some years ago, in helping service personnel with PTSD. I'm not going to go into all the details of that. But, you know, I've seen different people with PTSD. And if it's anything, one thing I learned is everybody's unique. Not everybody, you know, will react to some sort of intervention in the same way. And again, I know that of personal experience. I know fully well there's a lot of charities out there who are not interested in the guys with PTSD at all. All they want to do is gain funding. And you'd be surprised at how nasty the charity business can be. It's very competitive. And a lot of stuff happens very underhandedly. But, you know, for me, I try, you know, the doctors sent me on various things, CBT, EMDR, I think that's what it's called, you know, with the flashing light, human givens. And really, nothing was doing anything. I think in a lot of cases, it's like with the CBT. You know, the counsellor, or the therapist, should I say, was very much, you know, had only just left the schoolyard. Got very little life experience, if any. You know, gone straight to college from school, straight to university, got the qualification, that's it, now they're qualified. And it's obvious to tell, you know, it's one thing we found with ex-squaddies. You can't easily pull the wool over their eyes. You know, and to walk into a room and there's this kid sat there, and they start saying, explain some of the problems, you know, and you go on about night terrors. And they say, can you explain these to me? And you could see the shock on their face, the horror on their face. But then they have the audacity to say, well, yeah, I can understand how you feel. You look at him and think, you haven't got a clue. You haven't got a Scooby. And that's one of the big problems. You know, a lot of places, a lot of charities claim, we can cure PTSD for soldiers. And it became very clear to me that all they're doing there is they're trying to make money, get funding. You know, if you understand a soldier's PTSD through prolonged causation, as was talked about yesterday, you'll know. Okay, PTSD isn't really curable. You just learn to manage it. And I tried things like that scam NLP. And it is just a scam. I mean, it was set up as a joke. And yet that very NLP has been used on the people these days to swear by it and charge you hundreds of pounds for it. But what I did find helped me was I got introduced to this guy. Now, I'm not going to mention the company name or anything because they have strict marketing policies, which is a shame. Now, he's not an ex-squaddy. And I must admit, when I was first told about him, I was very sceptical. I thought, well, he's not been a soldier. What's he going to know? And there's a group of us, and it's going to be done online. An hour a week, I think it was 6 weeks. And what got me his first day, when we went online, he said, look, you're all ex-service personnel here. It was men and women. He said, I don't claim to know anything about PTSD. I don't claim to know anything about military life. He said, I just know what makes your brain tick. He said, I just want you to give me a bit of time so I can explain why you think the way you think. I thought to myself, okay, he's not claiming stuff here. At least he's being honest. Now let's give him a chance. Catch you later, mate. Yeah, so I thought, you know what, I'll give him a little bit of chance. And by week 3, everything fell into place. And it started to have an effect. Some people it's probably a week, maybe a week or 2 later. But I think for the majority of us, and the idea behind this therapy is, as the guy said, he said, I'm not here to offer to cure your PTSD. He said, although it's a common modality between all of you, he said, I don't care whether you're here because you've got a phobia against something. I don't care if you're here because you've got an eating disorder, anxiety, depression. He said, but we can all alter things. We just need to understand it. And he said, if we're going to alter things, we need to understand what's going on and why. And he says, I'm not here to talk about your PTSD, you know, your dark thoughts. But by God, it worked. And the idea is that it teaches you that the reality you experience is driven by our emotions. Now, this has been proved in neuroscience that our brains use a very complex predictive system to show us the reality we're in. You know, what I mean by that is, I'm just walking up here, and if you look at all the colours, the path, trees, there's a lot of information. But I'm only seeing, actually, through my eyes, and just using that as one sense alone, it includes all the senses, I'm only seeing a small portion. And that portion is anything that feels different or is moving. And that's survival. Is there somebody coming through the woods at me? Is there a predator in the woods? Moving, shadow, and all this. Now, to process all this information I am seeing, and what you're seeing on the camera right now, would take a hell of a lot of processing power. So what the brain does, it fills in anything that isn't of focus to us. By focus, I mean that predator, that thing which is out of place, something different. It predicts that. But in the meantime, it uses those memories of before to build the full picture for you. So when something's different, it compares this against its database of memories, and it alerts you to anything different. So, for example, there's a gate in front of me. That gate was suddenly no longer there. Because I've been in before, my memory predicts there's a gate here. That gate's no longer there. That's something in a comparison that has now changed. And so it'll alert me to it. You know, it's like if you're riding on a train, you know, you're going through rolling countryside. The only things you really remember about that train ride are things that you focused on. So it might have been a tree in a field with somebody stood under it, or some cattle moving. So your attention focuses to that. Everything else is being filled in predictively. Being filled in from memory. But when you get home later that day and you think about that journey, the chances are you remember that tree with that person under, or an animal under moving. You know, it's like if I suddenly go through a train station. Because things have changed, I might be able to remember the train station. But, you know, if there's a naked woman sat on one of the benches, I'd certainly remember that. So neuroscience has now said, based on this, that most of your reality is based on memory, not what is actually out there. Now, obviously your eyes are seeing what is actually out there, but it's only noticing certain things. Like I say, what I call things of focus. A person walking towards me. Or something else. Come on. Okay, it doesn't notice other things. It's just filled in from pre-memory. And that way, it gives us more processing power to focus on those important things, things that may affect our survival. And what that does, because our memories also have all the other senses incorporated in with them, we also have emotions attached to them. So very often, these memories bring something up, an emotion up, that isn't in our real world, and make us feel a certain way. And that's evolution. That's how we survive. I mean, there's one example for me. The smell of diesel, because that's what vehicles run on, will arouse certain emotions within me, certain feelings within me. Now, if there's a diesel spill, say a car has been parked here overnight, and it's leaking a bit of diesel, I smell it. That's not me in danger. But that link I've got in my memory to that smell of diesel might trigger anxiety. Maybe even fight or flight. But that's not my real reality. Now, when you really stop and think about this, it makes perfect sense. You know, I'm noticing down here there's loads of cars. And those cars here, but unless one of them does something different, I'm not going to remember it. So it means most of our reality is not real. We have to remember this. And depend on your life experiences. Your reality could be looking through a pair of shit-filtered lenses. Your reality might be lenses of fear, sadness, grief. But the situation doesn't represent, or your current situation doesn't represent how you should be feeling. And when you go away and you think about it, it's actually true. You run off your emotions And these form programs. And unchallenged, these programs will just simply run and run and run until you decide to acknowledge them and make a change to them. So, it's like me with diesel, the smell of diesel. Remember the last time I got it? I didn't try and fight it away. Didn't try and do anything else. I just acknowledge it. And then just tell myself, that's a memory. I am safe. There's nothing worrying around me. And by doing that, I can rewrite the program. And you know what? It works. But if I wake up and I feel in a bad place, or in a bad mood or whatever else, nothing else, I'll just tell myself, that's how I currently feel. I'm not going to feel like that in 5, 10, 15 minutes. And that this feeling is going to be over. And at that time, your environment has changed yet again. So it is over. And initially, when I start doing that, I use what's called an anchor to make me think this. And there's a small elastic wristband which just flick. And it tells me that this is not reality. The feeling I have right now is based on memory. And although those memories may have served me in the past well, they're not serving me well now. And that it's time to upgrade it. And after a while, this gets embedded into your brain. And you do it very, very quickly. You don't have to think about it. And you're updating the software, if you like, in your mind. You're not trying to eradicate memories like NLP. All you're doing is facing reality, the emotions at that time. You just face them and how you feel. And in reality, tell yourself, I'm not in that situation. That emotion, that feeling is not valid for this situation. It might have been before, but it's not now. By constant working on it, it works. So I sort of have explained it a little bit. I might talk more about it in later videos. So I'll just say at the moment, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you a bit later. Thanks for now, and bye.